Hi folks, Lou here to talk briefly about one aspect of chance in games. And that is, it's not just what random number is generated if that's what you're using, whether it's dice or something else, but at what juncture is this done? In other words, for example, in Britannia, where there are upwards of around 800 dice rolls in the course of a game, it's much more important to get those sixes that are hits at the end of the game, when it may be the difference between winning and losing, than early in the game where it's just part of the ebb and flow of what goes on. I can remember a time in Dungeons and Dragons when my wizard was flying on a broom above the enemy and doing execution to the enemy. They had a large force, and somebody tried to disintegrate me. Well, that was a really important dice roll, and fortunately I made my saving throw. And if I had failed at that juncture, it would have been ugly indeed, very, very ugly. So that's what I mean about when the die roll occurs or when the other randomizer occurs. Now, I saw this pretty graphically when I was playtesting the game Stlingrad Besieged, where you roll a single die for each attack. And a high die, you're more likely to defeat the enemy, and a low die, you're going to miss. Well, the first time other people playtested it, one player had so much good luck that the other player just didn't have a prayer. It was very one-sided. Didn't matter about player skill, it was just very one-sided. So I decided, while playtesting, to use a method that reduced the overall chance, and that was to use cards numbered from 1 to 6 and give each player a deck that included about 4 sets of 1 to 6. And the player would turn over cards instead of rolling dice. So in the course of 24 rolls, each player would get the same range of numbers. But I found that sometimes that achieved my purpose, but sometimes it was still a matter of, oh, the good numbers have come at the right time, and that's made a lot more difference. And that's what I mean when I say chance is about when as well as what you end up rolling or otherwise generating as a random number. And all this is probably another reason why when I was a young adult, and I mean an adult, not a teenager, I used to say, I hate dice games. Well, then I ran into Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, there are lots and lots of dice rolls in Dungeons and Dragons, but you can play Dungeons and Dragons as though it was life, where you try to minimize the number of times that you have to get lucky to survive. And played that way, it's not a dice game at all. And again, what you're doing is not only looking for the junctures, but trying to avoid the junctures where you really need to get lucky. Thanks for listening.